Paul Swift here, and this is Ask the Fitter. This is going to be the long version of talking about the red Look Delta Cleats, and some people are having a challenge clipping into a pedal, primarily indoor cycling, because I've had this happen with the spinning pedal, and I've seen it now happening with Peloton, and it's primarily of these cleats. There are several different types, by the way, or brands of Look Delta Cleats. This one is probably one of the oldest styles and brands. This is probably made in Taiwan. It was probably actually the cleat even made for Look itself at one point. And what we have here is a challenge of some people when they're trying to clip into their pedals that they are having a difficult time. Well, what that is primarily due to is this little red piece here, or excuse me, the black rectangular piece. And you can see if I hold it at an angle, it sticks down a little bit. I can actually push it up when it's not on there and see how it's flush. And we push it down. Okay. So, does the same thing even if it's a round shape. See how it sticks down a little bit? I can push it up and out of the way. Oh, that one's actually twisted in. I have to twist it and turn it. So, and then there are others that you can see where it is flat and flush. So, some people even think that maybe this is a defect, and I've seen a couple one big company in particular say it's a defect in this cleat. Well, it's not exactly a defect. It happens to be a shoe issue. Almost everybody that this happens to have a slightly smaller shoe and not a larger shoe. So there's a couple things going on here with shoes. And it has to deal with, I don't know, maybe quality control, shoes. Sometimes people's knowledge, even though like they make a cycling shoe, you think they're going to know everything about the pedal and its connection and the interface and how this was designed, and sometimes they don't necessarily talk together all that much. But what's going on here is this slope of this shoe on the outside, this radius, is not the same as this shoe. Okay? Well, that's a problem. It's a big problem. Now, where did this all start? I'm just kind of guessing that, the shape of your foot. There was the inside of the sole was made, to sort of match that bend or shape of your foot. But then you have the outside. And well, the outside and the inside may not necessarily be the same, or should rather, and maybe that's where some of this comes from. But what happens is when you tighten this cleat in particular on a smaller shoe with a more of a curve or radius here, this red piece pushes up a little bit more, gets a little higher. Okay, and what that does when you're clipping into the pedal, we'll just use this pedal for an example here, it's got a surface on it, is when it clips in and goes down, the bumper is hitting here. Well, for some of us that are bigger or this is worn out, it just goes right in. It's not a problem. But what happens is it's usually the smaller shoe, and therefore it's also usually the lighter person. Usually. It can happen to bigger folks too. So let me give you a little example of what's going on here. For example, this was a base plate of another brand of pedal, Speed Play, that has to go on the shoe to go on their cleat, which is flat. Okay, and this plate fits very well. See, look at those curves on there. Very well on this shoe. So you can see. Pretty nice fit, okay? Can't rock it, pretty solid, pretty nice fit, okay? So if I tighten it up, it's going to sort of keep its integrity, sort of stay flat. However, when I put it on this shoe, there's something going on here, is it doesn't quite fit. It kind of rocks and there's space. So now if I tighten this up, it's going to deform a little bit. It's not going to be perfectly flat and flush and flat. So they did things like as they changed, they put these little, see there's a blue, it's blue, it's kind of hard to tell, but that's a wedge. And you could snap these out and put different ones in if I had it handy here, because they figured out that the shoe companies don't have it all together on the outside of the shoe, because this one fits really nice on the shoe. Now, fitters kind of know this. They may not know the extent of it, but most of them know this. Particularly if you had Speed Play, this has to be flat on the top. This fits this shoe quite nicely, okay? But if I go and put it on this smaller shoe, you can see it doesn't. And there's a little bit of rocking going on. So I have to change these little wedges here to make the contour better fit this shoe. Well, the problem is with these cleats, is there's a contour or a shape to it. And it's the same no matter what. No matter what the shoe is, no matter what, it's the same. And it's designed to fit into a pedal. It's designed to be mounted to something with that similar shape. It's designed to go into a pedal. And this is where the challenge comes into place. And some people say, well, this thing sticks down and it was defective and I had a hard time clipping in. Let me just jump forward quickly. So there was a gal on the forums just yesterday, and she couldn't clip in. She brand new bike, been days, frustrated as can be. Now, first of all, clipping into a pedal can be a little challenging if you've never done it before. You know, and you're new, and a lot of these Peloton folks are new. Here's a shoe with a cleat on it. Goes into here, goes into the front part of the pedal, okay? Slips in, toe down, goes in, then the back goes down. I'm going to use this pedal for illustrative purposes. Clips into that, okay? There, now it's clipped in. Just want to give you a nice look of that. All right? And you'll notice in the middle, though, it's kind of hard to see through. Right in the middle here, kind of hard to see through there. You might find some little gaps to the front and rear of that pedal. You can see that. But you don't see it right in the middle. Well, that's that black rubber piece touching. That was kind of designed that if there's a gap there to fill it in, kind of mush it in, keeps it from tapping. Years ago, sometimes you'd have this little tapping going on here. So that's set up for this. Now, the thing is, if I take this cleat and I mount it on a smaller shoe, not only does it, because of the radius is different, it pushes up on this a little bit, it deforms the cleat a little bit too. And so that makes it harder with the smaller one to clip in because this is pushed up. Now, there have been other issues. For example, this is the Schwinn spinning pedal, right? See this little gap right here? A little gap. So what happens when this one went down into it, it clipped in okay, because they put a little detent here. Clipped in okay, but when they rotated outward, some people were catching on this little bit, this little piece here, and they weren't able to clip out. And that was that ridge there. Now, I wouldn't have done that, but that's what they did. It's a nice pedal. And so I was working with a club that this was a challenge, and so we had to either grind these down or take them out. But eventually, too, it also started to kind of go away. Well, they had recently put out a bunch of new cleats and pedals. Well, the one thing about indoors is we don't tend to walk on this stuff as much. A lot of us, especially if we have a home bike, put on the shoes and ride. So this never wears out. So if you look at this one real close, you can see it's all scuffed up and worn out. Well, it tends to wear these flatter when we walk on them. People say, I don't really walk on my cleats. Well, you know, you stand on the ground, you hop on your bike, you may walk out of your garage, you may walk to a bathroom somewhere, you may get a coffee. You'll start scuffing these up a little bit, you know. Some of these, you know, on indoors will almost not show anywhere, but these will. And so that's another reason, too, for the outdoor pedals. And I don't have the Delta one with me, but they tend to have more of a whole relief here. So that this black piece would sort of hit like right here, okay, right there, and some of it might even hang off the back a little bit. And therefore it clipped in a little easier because the Delta had a bigger hole here, so it just touched a little bit right there, and then it would come down. Now it had a lot more room to get a little swivel going, or relief to get out. So, and then it was easier to clip out as well. And so this has been kind of a historical challenge here for a long time. And so the Peloton shoe, we definitely know the smaller shoe has more curve. The Shimano shoe, Shimano's supposed to be a big name, has more curve. Now Shimano makes a cleat and pedal too, you know, and their cleat, guess what? Has some curve on the back, just like, try this for the first time. Fits this one really nice, right? Yeah, pretty good. See what it does on this one. A little bit of rock, okay? Now, what these guys have done, though, they've been at it a little bit longer. They've kind of figured out that this cleat can take a little bit of torque and things like that, because I've seen the same issue happen with this cleat. So what we've had to do, and fitters might know this, is when we've had it too small and it doesn't clip in, we've taken Speedplay, I think it is, yeah, it has these little extra little wedges, see here, and we've had to stick them underneath here to raise that up to keep these surfaces more flat. So even Shimano and a Shimano shoe has had this happen. So when you call a company and they say, oh, the cleat's defective, well, they're kind of not really aware of what's going on with this situation. So I'm into pedals, as you probably know. I patented this once I looked once at SPD. I also patented this little lever here. Take it, make it a lot easier to get the basket out, so to speak. I don't have a basket here, it's up there. And so when I made my first pedal, I want you to notice something here. Look at this flat surface, okay? Because I was aware of this clipping out issue. I was aware of some of the stuff going on, But occasionally, I mean, I never really had an issue with this because it was smoother. A couple clipping in issues, very, very rare. But it was because that rubber piece was sticking up. And it wasn't because it was the cleat's fault. It's because it tended to be a smaller person, smaller shoe, weighs less. I'm bigger. I'm 200 plus. I can, if this is deformed, I can smack it in no problem. Now, I've seen shoes on the market. I haven't seen it with the Lakes, but I've seen the shoe like twisted a little bit. I've seen the shoe surface rounded a little bit. I want to think maybe it was Mavic. I can't remember which it was. And it was 1 year, an entire line of shoes. I mean, cleat clipping in issues galore. I don't even know if they do shoes anymore. I mean, it was a disaster. So things happen. Things happen in production. Things happen in whatever. But people aren't aware that this radius on the outside of your foot has to be the same, regardless of the size of the shoe. Okay? But it's not. And that's a challenge. So things like speed plate. Look it. You know, they made a little plate that's flat, and Look, or Lake, and maybe one other company made a shoe surface where it's flat. So no matter how the shape of this is underneath here, they kept it flat, and it always fits their cleat really nice. So that's a lot of what's going on here. Now, didn't mean to make this a long-winded version, but that's the case. Pedals are made differently. Some have a little space here, some don't. Don't freak out and think it's the cleat. You can take a screwdriver, a little flathead, and reef it out. Now, if you start getting a little tap, you know, then maybe it should have went in. You can grind it down a little bit, sand it down a little bit. You can walk on it. That might help it. The cleats are not defective. I've never seen a defective cleat like this. They all come out of a mold. They all come out the same way. I've seen some of the knockoffs be a little funky in their fit. But just because it's round doesn't mean it's better. Just because it's rectangle doesn't mean it's better. It's the shoe. By the way, I'm going to put it out there. Your company needs or wants some help with that. Notice that I show the Shimano shoe, but I almost always show Lake shoes. They do a pretty good job with this. But a lot of companies are flat-footed here, and you have to be prepared. So fitters, be prepared. If you're a non-fitter and you're just a consumer, you're somebody riding a bike at home, now you know what's going on, and this is why. You can pop that out. I had a gal called yesterday. Boom, we popped it out in no time. I'm Paul at Ask the Fitter. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to help you with this. Thanks for watching. Have a great ride.